Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome us along to the education part of the Education Communities Committee. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data control under the General Data Protection Regulations of Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record council meetings that fulfil our public trust obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the council's published policies available through the council's website. Members of the council are reminded that they should follow the council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who may have also received invites to the meeting. So with that, I'll hand you over to Diane to apologies and declaration.
We have an apology for absence from Councillor Reynolds, with Councillor Curley substituting. We'll now move to the attendance roll call, seeking the declaration of interest. Following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan. Present in the chamber. Councillor Fogarty.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in the chamber. Sorry, present remotely.
No,
I'll get there in the end.
Good me up, Scotty.
Councillor McGuire. Present. Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Quinn. Present in chamber. Councillor Robertson.
Yep, I'm in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson. Reverend Burt.
Present chamber.
Mr. Doherty. Reverend Donaldson. Ms. McDonald.
Present remotely.
Ms. McEwen.
Present remotely.
Are there any further declarations of interest in those intimated at the other meeting?
Thank you very much. Can we move along to agenda item number 9, which is the Education Revenue Budget Update? Ian, thanks for this. Ian.
Thanks, Convener. This is the Education Revenue Budget Report for financial year 24-25. Current revenue budget for the education part of the committee is currently 112.3 million, 112.3 million, and the latest projection is an overspend of 370,000, or 0.3% in the budget. That's a decrease in the overspend of 90,000 since the last committee. Section 3.3 of the report gives the details of the main variances responsible for the projected overspend. The main areas of overspend being employee costs, early years partner providers, catering and transport. And you'll see that it's detailed there. So some of them are the regular, the ones that appear. Section 3.4 of the report in Appendix 4 that provides you the details of the earmarked reserves. Expenditure is currently at 97.3% of the phase spend and 41.1% of the expected spend for this financial year. I'm not requesting any environments this cycle. So committee are asked to note the projected overspend of 370,000 for the 23-24 revenue budget, and also to note that proposals to address this overspend that will be presented to a future committee. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'll open up to questions. Can't see any questions in the room. No questions in the line. Can we agree with the report?
Agree.
Can we move to education partner programme progress? Eddie is now online, I believe. Eddie, do you want to take us through the report?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. The report provides the update on the activities through the Education Capital Programme and that's predominantly obviously now focused on life cycle with the only budget line that we have. The report goes through the different elements of life cycle, from the PPP schools to our own programme, and then the different strands that feed into that, like the artificial pitches, the active panel refresh, and then how some of that work aligns with net zero in our current action plan. As usual, most of the detail is included in the appendices, and particularly Appendix 2, which provides you with a snapshot of all the work ongoing across the different facilities across the estate, with the different colours indicating the new items that have come in the November report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Eddie. I'll open up for questions for any members. I can't see anyone in the room, and I can't see anyone wanting to make a report.
Agreed.
Thank you. We move along to agenda item number 11, which is the education community recovery and improvement plan. Ruth, would you like to start us off?
Yes, so this is the update on our 23 to 26 community improvement plan. I'll perhaps start with the positives in paragraph 3.6. So the actions that have been included are not unsubstantial, I would have to say. So we had the year 3 attainment challenge approved. The virtual school model is now fully established and has been updated on the progress of that. The updated attendance strategy, and I'll talk a little bit more about the KPIs around that. The CLD strategy was heard at the alarm board and the earlier part of the community, and then also the school crossing patrol site survey that we undertook and in consideration to attend to the community. So there's been lots of progress, lots of completed actions, which we are delighted with. Only one area of slippage, and that's in relation to the libraries engaging with the health and wellbeing programme. It's not slippage that we're particularly concerned about, but it's just slippage against time scales. If I take you to the progress to paragraph 3.8, the KPIs. So again, some positive news highlighted in the report. In 2022-23, we reached our highest level ever in the participation in education training and employment performance data for 96.4%. For the next two bullet points, can I take you perhaps to page 125, one report. There's a couple of things here that where we can look at our own journey against trends, and we shout out here for any of our KPIs that are on the local government benchmarking framework. If you go into that framework, it's really, really user friendly, and you can get all of the data analysed against trends, against other different family comparators. It's very easy to use. So if you look particularly our attendance rates for looked after pupils. Now we've taken the trouble of putting a little graph here to show trends, if one can see that. And if you look at our journey between 2014 and 2016, you can see that we weren't doing well here compared to where was the dotted line compared to the dotted lines. So something was happening in the Clyde where we weren't doing as well as other authorities. But if you look at the trend since then, yes, we've had a drop between 2022 and 2023, but you can see that actually others have had a larger drop. So actually, when we're looking at our improvement journey, yes, it might be going in it's certainly over the trend, it's going in the right way, but actually we're now doing something different to other authorities that in 2014-15 we weren't doing. Other authorities are doing better than us. If you look beginning to look at this trend data, actually we're up in the trend. So that's why I always like to see this type of data. If you just thought that would go down, you wouldn't hear actually the whole journey. And the same with the exclusion rates as well. This is particularly for looked after pupils. If you see it's gone up slightly, but if you look at our journey, if you look back to 2010, 2011, we were way worse than the rest of the country. And those of you who will remember back to 2015 and 2016, We did a huge amount of work on reducing exclusions for looking after children, and you can see where that's made an impact. And actually, if you look at our journey, yes, exclusions have gone up slightly, but again, we're below the national and we're below the family average. So that's why it's always nice to see these things in isolation. It's also good to see the trends around that. So, so they're worth keeping an eye on, but particularly you'll see the work we're doing around attendance is beginning to have a big impact. Somebody asked in the community, starting the committee, about seeing the data around the school meals. So Councillor Moran is actually there. So you're 23.3 against an average of 63.9. So actually, if we would be expected to be slightly below the national average, so actually there's your numbers. We're not very quite slow in the secondary part, where we're below the national average, 39.3 against 42.1. But you'll know the work that went out that we co-designed with the young people to make sure that they're getting a better experience. So that's what we're all for me, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that. I'll open up for questions. You see one from Lynn, and then Bash, I'll bring one in first. Lynn?
Yeah, thanks, Rupert. Probably even nice on the point that I was going to make around the school meals for secondary pupils. Obviously, we are below target, but it's just the sort of positive response that we're getting on those changes to pre-ordering the secondary meals, which has been really helpful. And for those that are not pre-ordering, because it means the normal queue is very small as well. I'm getting reports on. So it's just to say that it's great to hear, and obviously that's just the feedback coming from the young people. So I assume that if that's positive for them, hopefully we'll start to see those figures going in the right direction. So just well done on all the work, because I know it must have been significant, and probably to say well done to the teaching staff and the schools as well. I had to get them through that registering and at the start of the week. So and I think they had a wee blip because of the clocks going back or something. There was so just trying to navigate that and staying calm, and they've all kind of got there in the end. So hopefully that will be the positive to actually improve things. So just thanks for all the work on that as well.
And just on that, we mentioned the word co-designed earlier. That was really an example of the co-designing with young people. We sat down with them and we said, what are the issues? You know, and so we were able to sit and address not all of them. We weren't going to take them out from McDonald's every day, but most of them.
Still good. Natasha.
Thank you. I was going to raise the free school, not the free school meals, the secondary school meals, but I won't raise that again. Just on page 126, it's also within the main body of the report, just the number of adult learners achieving core skills qualification. I think I brought this up previously. Is there anything being put in place to try and, you know, improve that, improve the number of people being engaged with there? I understand that possibly we're engaging with people in a slightly different way, and we've maybe got different service pressures now, but it would be helpful to understand a bit of the context behind that. But likewise, if this is a separate paper or separate discussion, happy to take that offline.
No, and I spoke to you about this before. There's less resource. So there's less resource, there will be less impact. However, the numbers are up. So actually, it's a different type.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would be the case. I'm just wondering if, with the resourcing being different, with the demands being different, do we need to re-look at our targets maybe for this? Just we need to obviously be setting realistic targets that stretch us slightly, but you know.
Absolutely, and as we go through the different reviews, we're going to take going to take a single review. So this is where we will look at prioritising the areas to take. But we've got on the back of that, we will need to look at all of our targets. You can't set targets with somebody who knows.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you saying as part of the review, because that was going to be my question. So thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, convener. Yes, I just feel obliged to say that the East End Community Council continues to be very concerned about the loss of their school crossing patrol, and I just wondered if there's been any success in the recruitment of patrollers, I know we had that, we had the report last time around. I know you struggle to recruit them, but I think, I do have to, I feel I have to, I really have to pass, comment on that they really, it's kind of different at the moment because actually the road under the bridge at Sinclair Street is currently closed, so it's actually possibly a little less congested at the moment, but they do feel very strongly that it's a dangerous area with many, roads going on. And I just wondered if there's any good news on recruitment or anything. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the recruitment of school cost patrols remains a challenge, but all of the priority sites should be covered. So if you don't mind, I'll come back to you with further information on that.
Thank you. Thanks, Camille. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Thank you online. No one else in the room. Do we agree with the paper?
Agreed.
Thanks. Can we go through the education update report? Again, very similar to last time. An awful lot in here. I think there are 8 separate lines in this. We could probably all take a paper in itself. But I'll let Michael come in to introduce it. Mike.
Thank you, Convener. So, as usual, there's a lot in here. To talk to all of it, but I might be able to just make particular reference to a couple of the items. The first is at 3.1, supporting security 2, recent care inspection outcomes, one being the Deer Nursery unit, who, if you recall, had a previous rating of adequate and that was moved to good, which is very pleasing indeed, and credit to the team at the nursery as well as the ones online and the support provided to achieve that. And delighted with the reports, our inspection reports at Kilncombe, very good across the board. If you haven't read it, please do. It makes for a very pleasing meeting indeed. So congratulations to Simon and her team at Kilncombe. At 3.2 and 3.3, there is an update, although whilst we've done this, I wrote this, I understand. 3.2 is an update about education reform and the education bill, which is still moving its way through in Parliament. And in that respect, we're still at that point where the bill will see the three separate bodies become reality. The Qualifications Authority, Education Scotland, leading on language platform, and separate certain function of the inspector. So there's something.
David, welcome to the meeting. Can you put your mic on silent?
Please.
So currently the two key posts, the chief inspector and chief executive, are out to advert, and I believe they're maybe being advertised. So there's still a lot of journey to be travelled around 3.2. At 3.3, I've done my best to summarise the response from the Scottish Government, which there is a link there at 3.3 highlighted if you want to see the full response to Professor Hayward's report. And I've tried to summarise the key areas where the initial response has been given to us. It's given some indication of where we'll be going with this. I believe, having listened to recent Education and Skills Committee footage over the last couple of weeks, and particularly last week, that there's another response coming in December with more detail in it. However, the key message being that the proposed removal of the National 5 exam will not be taken. However, there will be an attempt to look at streamlining assessment in that regard. And there are a number of areas that will potentially see the light of day in terms of moving forwards. But as I say, there is still further report to come on full detail around this. There are potential areas of what he would recommend that local authorities could potentially start to work on now. There's nothing necessarily stopping us, and there's certainly a discussion within this partnership that local authorities might look at the concept of a diploma of achievement and progress some initial work around that. Glasgow certainly have started that, and we've been in conversation with them. So there's an intention to progress that piece of work rather than waiting. But obviously we'll get more information. Just to highlight at 3.5, our current promoting positive relationships policy is for renewal or review. And at the moment we are waiting on further information and guidance from the Scottish Government as part of their behaviour action plan. That's one of the key areas that we said that they would deliver further advice on, and they're quoted Alex what was said. We've done an initial desktop review of the policy as it stands. However, a fuller review will be forthcoming once we've got that guidance from the Scottish Government. I don't know if we wants to say something about 3.8.
Yes, I think. So basically, we had a request for the last committee about representation of the voice of young people in the Education Communities Committee, and co-design does seem to be a word that is running through this committee. So we spoke to a number of young people and different views about how it could be progressed, all very positive. So we were going to work with Young Scots to see if we can co-design a model with young people and bring a report, a further report back to the committee. I understand this is the most cost work with Young Scot, and the advantage of working with Young Scot is they have not respected this one.
Is that you?
Yes.
I'll bring Councillor Running first.
I thank you. First of all, I must apologise for not bringing it up before. It was the engagement of young people. Back in the day, they used to come down here and had their own committee, and we would have all the school kids from the whole Inverclyde, and one of them would take the chair where you're sitting now, and the rest would all contribute to the meeting. And we learned an awful lot from that experience, because they would bring different things to the table that maybe they wouldn't have spoke about, you know, to us directly, but they actually conducted the meeting and brought proposals forward, which we looked at. And one of the things was underage drinking at the time, and it was test purchase and stuff like that. And it was actually amazing the amount of knowledge that we gained through the young people having that meeting. Now, I don't know if that's something we would consider going forward, but it may be something we could look at, because certainly in the past it worked. I don't know if it worked now.
I would think I'll bring with you in, but I think probably our Clyde conversations probably picks that box of it. But thank you on that. You, Ruth, you want to take?
Yeah. So Clyde Conversations definitely ticks the box of the young people bringing in issues that, for instance, like drinking and moving to the health and well-being, to the adults and the partners as well. And that is designed by the young people about the issues that matter to them, and they talk about it. However, when we're looking at the different models, the possibility of a young person's committee or something along those lines will be considered, because that's one of the options that was put forward. So nothing's off the table. We'll look at it.
Yeah. Well, it was good in the past, I have to say, you know, and especially the conflict of Glasgow to Europe, that interaction, you know, because Inverclyde is quite well spread out. It gave them an opportunity to get together and discuss issues that would affect in other communities.
I'm going to go to Natasha, then Paul, and David online. Natasha.
So a couple of things have already been picked up. Just first of all, I want to say congratulations to Madeira and the local nursery schools, just because I know that there must have been a lot of work that went into that. I appreciate the inspections are quite a stressful time. So well done to both of them and to everyone's team for the work that went on there. So I've got a question around 3.4, the Scottish Attainment Challenge, of how many more schools are taking part in it. It says there are a few schools, and can the schools that are taking part be shared with us, or is that something that maybe isn't appropriate for this forum, since 3.4?
So through you know, what we were asked to do was input forward schools where there was good practice and share it. So I'm not sure what the intention is in terms of whether when the piece of work is published, whether they list the schools. They sometimes do that thematic inspections. I can double check and clarify.
Okay. And my other question was just around the representation of young people in Education Communities Committee. That's a mouthful to say that. I should maybe find a shorter way of saying that. I was going to bring up like a conversation how we use that as a forum for our young people to contribute, and I know that there's a lot of work that goes into that by our young people to make sure that that's successful. I know that our MSYPs work hard with our young people. I suppose two questions I've got. One is we had began looking into this a while ago, hadn't we? It wasn't just last committee, that there was something that we were looking into regarding this before. And secondly, are we taking it right up to Scottish Government definition of a young person? Or are we talking about under 18-year-old? Or are we talking about all the way up to 26?
Good.
Sorry. The bottom line is that we don't know yet, and so
Okay,
we'll
that's
speak
okay.
to young people.
Yep.
What we're hearing is that the engagement does need to be meaningful.
Yep, of course.
It has to be, the young people have very, very positive experiences in high conversations because of the way it was designed. So we will look to see what comes out.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate that it will depend on what young Scott thinks from young people as well with that. And I agree, it has to be meaningful. It can't just be, we have a young person here, tick. That's not what we're here for.
And if I tell you another point, Stephen Cooke was second with it previously.
Oh, right, okay.
But on tandem with that, we did get contacted by one of the MSPs as well. So Stephen brought it up, we agreed to do it at that point in time. But virtually in tandem, we're very close to that, we got lobbied on it as well.
Okay.
So they both, it seemed that they both run in tandem. So that's why it's key to this kind of story with them.
No, and just to link in with that, because this is the Education Communities Committee, we also have the Alliance Board. Yep. And one of the feedback from our CLD inspection was to involve people in the co-creation of the CLD plan. So we have the two MSYPs on the community planning partnership of the feeding into the Alliance Board, and that's been seen as very positive, and they've helped to co-write the plan.
So,
thank you, yeah, excellent, thank you.
I'm going to go to Paula next and then David.
Thanks, convener. So I'll pick up at 3.8 and then come back to 3.7. I think it's quite very exciting that we're talking about having a young person on our committee or young people's representation on our committee. I did a quick straw poll of colleagues around the country, and there are very few education committees where young people are represented. So it would be good to see us taking that forward and modelling that practice. Under 3.7, Michael, it says discussions are to take place between officials of the council and the government around teacher numbers. Do you have a timeline for that, when those discussions are anticipated to happen?
No.
Is that okay, Paula? It's a short answer.
Not okay, but it was what I anticipated.
David, I think you.
I'm okay.
David, sorry. Councillor Hobson, I should say. David?
Yes, thank you, convener. No, my question's been answered. I agree with Councillor Moran. I think it was very helpful to have young people in the chamber. I certainly would advocate having a young person on this committee. I think it would help us greatly. I fail to see why we need 3 members of the clergy on it, and I would certainly replace one of them with a young person. Thank you, convener.
Thank you, David. I'll let you think, because I'm sure there's reasons.
So there are different models across the country. What I would say is that not all education committees have a parental rep, and also you've got to consider there's a rep on there with voting rights as well. Certainly the union rep is a welcome addition. Members of the clergy. Also, there's a right for those to attend education committees And actually, it's in the standing orders who attends and how they are voted on to the committee as well. So just to provide clarity about why the committee has the members it has and the different rights they have in the committee.
I'll bring you in since Councillor Wilson founded the pack against the party. I'll bring you in first.
I don't mind being attacked by Councillor Wilson, that's not a problem. The fact that there's three clergy, the actual model for clergy and representation is not just clergy as in from a particular Christian denomination, but it's across all religious bodies. So it could be from somebody from the Muslim community as well. There has been ongoing discussions about that for the church, and I know that in different councils there are different practices vis-a-vis voting rights, for example, which we would very kind of in place retain the voting right, and that's one thing that would have to be considered if you're bringing a young person on. If it's just on as a token, it'd be better if they're brought on with voting rights, and therefore a way of actually having a say into the committee would be really useful. I think it's a very, very important way forward.
Okay. Thanks, Emma. I think I'm very keen to see it on the way forward, but I'm also very keen to make sure it's not seen as us doing something to young people, and that's why the young sort of thing is probably very good enough. Elizabeth?
Thanks for bringing in. And just a few sort of reflections on 3.8 really. I think when we look at the committee, then the young people really are the only stakeholders of education that aren't really represented. You know, we've got people here representing parents, people representing the authority, people representing the workforce and the kind of the faith communities that support schools. But young people is a bit of a glaring gap. I take on board what's been said that not every authority does it, but I don't think that's a reason why we shouldn't try. Just again reflecting on Councillor Moran's points about young people coming to committee in the past and things, and I think that's it. I'm sure it didn't happen all the time, so it's not an embedded function. No. It was a separate thing rather than being part of what we do naturally through our work. So I think client conversations is maybe the kind of the modern version of what previously happened, and so I think having something that isn't separate but embedded would be a better way. Controversial. I am comfortable with our MSYPs being the people who are looked at for this because they're mandated. They've got a mandate the same way the 11 elected members who are on here as councillors are mandated to be here. They have a mandate from the young people in Limerick, and I would be comfortable with that. And I think them rather than, for example, an alternative model might be head boys and head girls from schools, but there, again, I'm going to go back to my governance point from previous. They have a 1 year hit at being head boy, head girl, and MSYP has a longer period of tenure, and those are my reflections on 3.8.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Councillor Wilson, you've still got your hand up, is that legacy? When you want to come back in? Oh, thank you. Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. So I think I probably need to declare an interest at this stage now that we've actually moved the conversation on about members of the Youth Parliament. My son's actually currently serving member of the Youth Parliament, but I think we're actually talking about the position being there as the position on the committee and no individuals. So I think I'm okay to have a input into that discussion. So it was just to declare that interest. Yeah, so which I'm trying to detach the fact of the knowledge of the member of Youth Parliament from that relation, but I think it's probably worth noting that they have got, I think what you said, a democratic right, but also the training involved in that. So they do get media training. So they're off at Youth Parliament this weekend to put forward motions and amendments and all that structural stuff about a committee and what a voting right means. So that all comes as part of their training, communication training and everything else. So my concern would be another young person coming on the committee and having to deal with
you know, the day-to-day workings of a committee and how to navigate that as someone who doesn't have that support network or the training of it. So it's something that we need to think about as well. Thanks.
Thanks. Francesca, you want to come in?
Thanks very much, convener. I mean, obviously, loads of really important updates in this report. You know, there's a lot in there, as we always say. I suppose it's just, I think just to come back on 3.8 slightly, I think I very much welcome the approach that's been proposed by the officers of looking at it along with Young Scot and really investigating that range of options that's there available to involve young people in democracy. I absolutely think, you know, again, it goes down a route of us saying that we really want young people to be involved, and actually we need to hear that directly from young people themselves. I think when we discussed it before, I can't remember if it was myself or somebody else mentioned that we've got client conversations that I do feel very much influences and informs the work of this committee, along with other things like the MSYPs and there's already probably Hugh could tell us more about it, but I think there is the youth council and there are youth reps there as well, you know, through that we see through CLD. I suppose it's just also the point, I don't entirely agree with Councillor Robertson's point that young people are the only group of stakeholders not represented in the committee, because I think if we wanted to look at the committee as a whole, then we could look very much at the community side and think about stakeholders there that we may or may not have represented. And I think we could look at young people and think that term of young people, does that really represent 0 to 25-year-olds, for example? I don't think, I mean, it would be, we're thinking there's so much in this, you know, like there's the early years consideration, there's obviously very much this element of the committee, I feel when we get to the second part of it, is about education, that really they were looking to kind of 0 up to sort of 17, 18-year-olds. That's who, that would be, if we're saying that we really want the voice of young people involved in these types of decisions, that would be sort of 0 to 18-year-olds really then we'd be looking at. Often the MSYPs will be school pupils, and the current iteration of the MSYPs that we have in Inverclyde, they just happen to not be, you know, that's the way it's worked out this time, it might not another time. And I suppose it's just that thing as well about the kind of mandate that I think we probably, I understand that probably the MSYP mandate is to serve on the Scottish Youth Parliament, and we're really getting into the weeds now of it, but I think it's just about, I think we wouldn't want to kind of get too far into the whole looking at what this actually means, because I think it'll be really interesting to see what comes out from that Young Scot co-design, to see what they're looking at, what all the implications of it are, and what that will actually mean. That is, I think it's just to come in, and some of the points that have been raised I probably wouldn't entirely agree with, so I think it's just worth having that discussion. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, convener. I think you said in the introduction it's about the same issue, about children and young people being represented on the committee 3.8. I think I heard you say it in the beginning, it's of no cost. Is that right? It's of no cost to the council. Well, I'm reassured about that, because I just did not want to be spending money on, you know, when we've got an overspend. I didn't want to be spending money we don't have on asking questions when we've got groups that we could be asking. I'm assuming, you know, school councils or head boys and girls. What's the time scale? I mean, is there any time scale for them reporting back and giving us an answer? And I'm asking, I suppose I'm, you know, listening to Paula's point that in fact, there are very few committees that have children and young people on them. So it's going to be a short, you know, it's going to be a short exercise. You know, and it's more, it seems to me, for this committee to be saying what we, you know, what we want, asking our school councils, head boys and girls, what do you want to happen, and getting on with it. That's my view.
I'll bring, you know, with the total in the time scale, I think I'm committed to quite a short time scale.
So we already have spoken with the head boys and head girls. We've got regular catch-ups with them, and there's a lot for us to consider. They challenged us with a lot of questions, saying it's the same question: what is the young person to somebody at school? Is it something? an S6 might have a different opinion to an S3 child. So what is the young person? They asked these questions. They said, how do we know that the different experiences of education are being reflected? So they challenged us with a lot of questions, which is why we said actually we want to take our time on this and make sure we get it right, and listen to the young people, and bring young Scott in, because actually they asked a lot of questions of us about what it would look like that we probably need to give some consideration to. So we have got a group of young people together, we have asked them, and we've got an idea of what we'd like to do, but it might not be consistent across what other folk want as well. So that's why we want to come in and just give it more discussion. The timescale, I don't know, because I don't know if we've actually got the resource in place, but I'll hand over to Tony.
Yeah, so we made contact with your Scott, and they said we would assess the improvements we have at scale for when it would actually be doing it. I totally accept that this, there needs to be time to around on this. So,
and
but the question is, do you want us to be turnaround?
I suppose we were looking at the next few months to actually get.
Okay, sorry, Tony.
Thank
Tony.
Sorry.
Oh, Tony, and then Pam.
Pam wasn't finished, I don't think.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Pam.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I understand the aspiration of asking people. I understand bringing in young Scott. I do not want to give any impression that this is being kicked into the long grass, and that's why I'm particularly asking about when is this going to, who are they going to be asking, and when are they going to report? And in a way, I would be rather with a suck it and see, kind of approach to this. We might not get it right first time around. It might not work out. But I would rather, frankly, have that than, somebody reporting back at some point when we don't know, when we've been told by someone who has a national experience that there isn't a lot to ask other people about anyway. Thank you.
The fashion. Oh, sorry, sorry.
Thanks, Convener. Just to touch on Councillor Brennan's point, I think as a general rule, the decision made in this committee affect school children and nursery children. And I think that should be certainly considered as a factor that we could see who's coming to represent young people, school children, and that decision's made. Thanks.
Sorry. And now Natasha.
Thank you. Don't think it's going to get kicked into the long grass. I think, especially from the feeling of the show today, there is that want to make sure that we are making some sort of progress on this. I think the reason why it's not a case of just try and do it, from my perspective, would be that this is children, young people that we talk about potentially coming into an environment which isn't usual to them, that, as I think it was Councillor Quinn said, our MSYPs do have training. I'm not actually sure of the training or I'm sure the support that we give our clergy, our trade union reps, our parent rep. I'm sure there's something there, but we need to consider all of that. And part of this young Scott thing isn't necessarily, and please correct me if I'm wrong, isn't necessarily talking about not doing something, and not necessarily just looking at what other places are doing. It's actually about asking the young people, what do you want? If this is going to go ahead, what do you want? And when we're looking at, and I'm sure we're going to consider any model possible, I think we're going to be looking at, like, for example, MSYPs, they're apolitical, so if they are coming on as elected people, we need to think about how do we protect them from what sometimes can be a political element, because we are an elected government authority. We need to be mindful of that, and we do need to make sure that we're doing as much as we can at this early stage to set ourselves up for success and set these young people up for success when they come to that chamber, so that when they do give their view, that they feel empowered to do that, they feel like they can be honest, so that when maybe we are missing something, they can stand up to us and say, look, this isn't right. And I'm sure from client conversations, from other interactions I've had with young people and yourselves, that we're going to be accepting of that. But I think that's why we're engaged with Young Scots, because they're more expert in young people than we are, and they can help build something that hopefully will be sector leading and will enable other councils to maybe learn from us where we haven't been able to learn from them. If I'm correct, but feel free to
No, not at all.
come back on me.
No, that would when they go to Robert first, I mean, there's an awful lot in this paper, I know.
I absolutely believe I can kind of, just another maybe thoughts. You know, in the IGIB, which I chair, we have non-board members, that people in the community who come along here with your voice or whatever. They make a real good contribution to the committee, I have to say, and we do listen, but at the end of the day, they don't vote, and that may be something we could be thinking about. They could be a member of this committee, they could take part of it, they could make a suggestion. When it comes to vote, no. And I think that's maybe something we could look at as well.
Thanks, Laura. As I said, I'm part of the debate to see what we get back. But the report's there, straight parts of the report. Is anybody anything else that want to bring up in their part of it? Can we agree the paper?
Yes.
Thank you. Move to agenda item number 30. Well, I think it's Yvonne that's take this. Yeah, Yvonne, you want to take us through agenda item number 13, please?
Yep, can I just check you can hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
No problem.
Okay, through you, convener. The purpose of this report is to ask members of the committee to and review the changes to the early learning and childcare admissions policy. The recommendations are to agree the proposed changes in the ELC admission policy, to agree the allocation of children's entitlement to ELC in line with Scottish Government guidance, which is that an eligible child starts the term after their second or third birthday, and to agree that these changes will be implemented as part of the annual admission process in April 2025. You will see from 3.1 in the paper that all eligible 3 and 4-year-olds are entitled to and 2-year-olds as well, sorry, are entitled to 1,140 hours of early learning childcare per year. Initially, across many local authorities, they implemented this, and when they implemented this, they provided an additional provision from the month after a child's birthday. However, given the current financial pressures, many have reverted back to the statutory entitlement of the term after a child's second or third birthday. As part of the early learning childcare admissions policy, we consulted parents and carers and heads of establishments and managers from funded providers and childminders and other education officers within the council. The survey was completed by 173 parents and carers and 26 ELC providers, including childminders, and provided a summary of feedback in Appendix 1 and 2. Parents and carers were consulted in the policy and the process, which included a change to when children would receive their early learning childcare entitlement. And you will see from section 3.7 in the paper and Appendix 1 that 50% of parents responded that the change would not affect their child or family, with 26% stating that it would. Of the 26% of parents who felt that it would have an impact, 32% felt that their depending on when their birthday fell. However, changes introduced to eligibility from August 2023 now provide the option for any child who has a birthday from August onwards to receive an additional year at nursery. And whilst this is not a solution for everyone, it provides a choice for parents should they wish to ensure children receive their two full years of early learning childcare. There's also a commitment from Scottish Government and Inverclyde Council to promote the uptake of eligible 2-year-old places. And in section 8.3 of the paper and in Appendix 3, it outlines the banding policy of priority places, which provides a local authority with powers to allocate discretionary places through the multi-agency admissions panel. Much of the feedback from parents and carers was around the process of the policy rather than the changes to the policy, with the exception of the changes to eligibility and some areas around the allocation of places. And whilst we aim to accommodate all of the recommendations from parents and carers, there are some areas that we're unable to change. Some of these were siblings of children who attended the attached primary school and access establishments out with their defined area. Due to our statutory requirements to ensure every child in every area in Inverclyde receives an 1,140 hours linked to the process of priority banding, we're able to ensure that places are allocated through a fair and equitable process. You'll see in paper, that feedback identified areas for improvement around the timings of places and around how the process is communicated to parents and establishments, some of which is included in the development of an online process. Actions have been identified to address these areas. We've taken on board information received from heads of establishments, from funded providers and education officers around the prioritisation of care experienced children and adopted children and children who require specialist ELC placements and early identification of this. As mentioned previously, given the current financial pressures, I'm proposing that we move to the statutory entitlement for ELC. A copy of the early years admissions policy is included in Appendix 3. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Yvonne. You were breaking up a wee bit with the members too, as if it was okay, they got most of the details.
Oh, aye.
In that case, I'm going to open up questions. Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'll start by comment again at me and merge into a question. We had an exchange last time we had this committee about this piece of work and what was driving it, and obviously there was a kind of, it's been driven by financial considerations, etc. But I made it quite clear at that point that I wouldn't do this simply for financial decisions. It had to be because it was the right thing to do, and I think both being considered, the finances and the right thing to do, are kind of borne out in the consultation response. But actually, what I want to kind of really draw comment on is the added value of having the response to this consultation. I think this has helped to shape, obviously, the policy that it was needed to shape, but there's rich information in here that I think is kind of really useful wider within the early years system. So I think whoever, Yvonne, the team, the senior management, in terms of how this has been drafted as a consultation process, I think you've got some really, really rich information that can be used in the early years system here. So well done on that. No questions, just comments. There you go.
Thanks for that, Elizabeth. Francesca.
It's quite a similar comment to Councillor Robertson's. When I read this report, I think I agree, regardless of the really serious considerations involved in this report and within the recommendations. I think the fact that some things have come out of it, just mentioning that new band of the whole family unit, the more parent-friendly forms and online form, the improved communication about complementary services like Book Club and 5 to Thrive, and looking at income maximisation for the families who responded to it. I just think there's really important stuff in there, and I'm just very big thanks to everyone involved in putting that consultation together, because I think from that to see the actions, the additional actions that are going to be taken, that are going to make a real difference to families and to the children and young people, regardless of the additional considerations in the report, are really important and really very much welcome. Yeah.
Thanks, Francesca, from yourself as well. I want to see anything else in the room. Nobody else in the room. Can't see anything right. Can you agree with the paper?
Agreed.
Thanks for that. When we move on, again, this is something that's come up before the committee's last one. It's agenda item number 14, which is the attentive strategy. And I'm going to ask you to leave on this.
Thank you. So presenting the attendance strategy for the service, primarily for the next year, but some of the target deadlines, it's on beyond the academic year, so we'll go through 26. And so the strategy has actually captured a lot of work that's been ongoing over time, and has then further captured work that we are moving forward on, particularly in relation to the Scottish Future Strategic Equity Fund plan that's in place, and seeks to give more detail, clarity to all stakeholders on the key focus for us. As well as this, the report shares further data around attendance beyond that that's been previously shared through the establishment policy reporting, and that's been previously requested by elected members, and that's contained in Appendix 2. There are 4 key priority areas in the strategy for the year ahead, and they're outlined against a rationale that will no doubt form an overall development of the strategy over the coming years. The strategy also refers to the development of attendance policy. So this policy is currently being developed, and that's been done in alignment with new guidance that we only received recently in August from Education Scotland, alongside development of a large amount of resource and best practice verification. And that policy is being consulted on at the moment with key stakeholders, including heads of establishment. In fact, we've got a call tomorrow with heads of establishment or key leads of attendance, which is primarily being led by Education Scotland, to take us through both the strategy here as it is, but also key messages and key resources that we have available to us now. The data in Appendix 2 outlines obviously the following pandemic related picture of attendance has been an improving one despite the issues linked to the phase of remote learning during the pandemic. The improvement is particularly evident in primary schools, however the secondary attendance has plateaued over the last 2 years. I have to say, having just almost completed the annual meeting that we have with all of our head teachers, with 3 secondary school meetings last week, there is a huge amount of work going on in secondary schools in terms of simply tracking the attendance on a day-to-day, week-to-week, period-by-period approach. And in terms of that, it's very hard to sometimes decipher what more they could do in that regard. They are also doing a huge amount of work in relation to what is referred to in the strategy, which is Pool to School, really looking to ensure that the curriculum is fit for purpose for all pupils, but increasingly bespoke pathways are being offered to meet the needs of young people. And as well as that, a huge amount of work being done around the inclusion and wellbeing quality and students indicator to look at how we can support young people attend school when they're having a range of challenges, including mental health. So interestingly at the moment, I don't see too much, but one of our key elements of the strategy is data that we provide to the schools on a weekly basis, and we've had a professional agreement for 4 years now that we all see one another's weekly day-by-day attendance every week. We can see how everybody's doing, and we have year-to-date comparisons, and that's a hugely important tool. And interestingly, some of the secondary schools are beginning to see a move at this point in the year comparison to last year. In some cases, it's significant. So we're then trying to draw those schools in to share their practice with others. So I'm happy to take any questions. There's obviously more in section 3 that I can see, but I'm keen to hear what also you want to say that starts to question.
No, thanks so much. Well, thanks for bringing this to I know it's one of the members we're looking for. So I'll come to Francesca first. Francesca.
Thanks very much, Convener, and thanks very much for bringing this report and the information around it. Very, very welcome, and I know it's something that we often raise and talk about at this committee, and we're very much looking for it. It's really important that we get it, and it looks excellent to me. And I've seen, as I mentioned in the report, that tandem approach of the Pool to School plus the engagement while young people are at school. That, you know, I've seen even yourself, Michael, highlighting on social media about the autumnal activities that happened last week, and about that drawing young people to make sure that we're doing everything we can, you know, with the really serious side of the tracking and the bespoke approaches, and a bit of an element of fun there. So that's great. Thank you so much for that. I think the question in there is, I think what I would like to see, there's loads to prioritise in there, but I think that promotional campaign that's mentioned in it, about the possibility of that, I think that to me seems really important, because I think we know why we want young people to be at school, that it's not an inner-type problem, it's not a Scotland problem, it's a global issue. And we know why it's so important that young people get to school, because all the important work that we talk about at this committee, we actually need young people to be there, actually getting the benefits of that. So I think that's really campaign that both speaks to parents and young people about the importance of attendance, while also ensuring that there's no stigma there for the parents who do everything they can to get their young people to school, but are managing that against a landscape of, you know, very complex challenges. So it's just to ask if we think that will go ahead, and yeah, we got more information about that would be great. Thank you.
So, you know, the reference to that is there partly because you may have picked up within the report that there has been some activity with through an app or a web-based tool, that's the right use, Genealogy, to promote information to young people themselves and work with young people to co-design the messages. There are local authorities who have carried out or started a campaign, bus stops, around the community with key positive messages about the importance of attending school, why that is important. I think at the moment we're keeping an eye on that and waiting to see where that's happening. It's not that we're averse to doing that, but I think we want to get that right and make sure that we have the absolute right messages and so, as part of that. But schools on an individual basis are doing a huge amount of work to promote positive messages around why it's important to attend school, and within that, bringing in a huge range of speakers to talk about the world of work, the importance of attendance, just timekeeping as a skill, as a habit for being an employee, and including, Inverclyde Academy, Denise asking to change her meeting with me from Friday to Thursday because she wanted to be part of Thriller Dance to meet them all on the Friday, because Friday is a particular issue. The attendance drops consistently on Friday within Inverclyde and at a national level. So a number of schools, St Columbus, deliberately have their school show rehearsals on a Friday afternoon as part of a build to school, and there's no doubt that there's a correlation within that. There's even one head that believes that paninis are on the menu on Fridays. we are leaving no stone unturned.
I was going
So where are these paninis on a Friday?
Dress next struggle.
I think my question, that is a question this time, is I completely agree there's been a phenomenal amount of work done at school level as well in terms of attendance, and I'm just wondering, can you, and it probably is here and I've missed it, can you draw the line for me just between that work and this piece of work, and how they're, how what's happening at a kind of strategic authority level and what's happening at schools is all marrying up beautifully?
So the strategy is not standing start. That this work has been ongoing. I mean, I put in place an attendance conference pre-pandemic, where we wanted to have a conversation about this, and so we've been looking at this and talking about this for quite a while. And our attainment advisor, who has now moved on from being an attainment advisor to the inspectorate, Liz Somerville, largely as a result of the work we did in Inverclyde, became almost a national lead within Education Scotland, and had been a key lead for the resource that is now available nationally. So this seeks to make a more coherent plan sit right at the centre of a lot of work that's already going on, and certainly having that strategy laid out gives both the central team a very clear understanding of the activity that's going on, both here centrally but in partnership with schools. And what we're also seeking to do is, through the writing of a policy for the local authority, is provide clarity for schools, for parents, and obviously partners, which is a key element of the strategy, which is a key message from Education Scotland on the importance of partnerships in that education cannot necessarily do this on their own. And so we're having at the moment a lot of dialogue with partners across the partnership as to what support is available, what managing expectations are ahead. Within that, strategically, decisions have been made to, and we can obviously identify centrally through CNIS, children who have low attendance. So any child that has attendance below 20% has their case called into our fortnightly ESG, our screening meetings led by our inclusion leads, to ensure that there is a plan in place for that young person, whether it be a single agency plan or a multi-agency plan, that we can be assured that all is being done to meet that young person's need and support them to school. It also, the strategy just goes into it the work of Women View Academy, which has been a conversation here on a few occasions last year, and what you may have picked up called the EBSA model, which is a bespoke teaching package for young people who are really finding it incredibly difficult to get across the threshold of school that they attend, but they find the more intimate threshold will be an easier step, and that's been offered as a stepping stone back into the mainstream setting, partnership. So it's trying to, I suppose, coherently pull together a lot of things that have been happening, as well as the wider conversation about the curriculum itself. We could then make reference to the work that we on an ongoing basis we do in the senior phase in terms of the curriculum pathways to ensure that that is right and fit for purpose. So I suppose it's just trying to pull everything together into one place so we can all see what is happening.
Right, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Councillor Wilson, I'll let David in first. David.
Thank you very much, convener. I find this report a wee bit depressing, to be honest. I think it's that our persistent absence pupils, our percentage is higher than the Scottish average. I think that for some reason, too many of the pupils don't want to come to our schools. Now, as councillors here in Inverclyde, I think over the last 15 years, we've done our bit. We have provided a school estate that's second to none. It's really modern. The conditions under which the pupils can learn are quite excellent. The Scottish Government has done its bit. It's come up with a very good payment settlement for teachers. We now have 504 members of our education staff in Inverclyde earning over £50,000 a year, which I welcome. We should be paying our teaching staff well. So theoretically, we have got motivated staff and we've got excellent buildings, an excellent school estate in which to teach them. The question I'm going to ask, what more can we do to make the schools more attractive, to mean that these pupils will want to come into school rather than staying at home? Thank you.
Michael, so you can answer. Well, I Wilson probably knows the answer to it a minute, but I'll let go because it's a more popular approach as well. So Ruth might want to say something after it as well.
Well, through you, convener, Councillor Wilson, I had hoped the answer to your question, what can we do, was the attendance strategy. And I think it outlines exactly what we are doing about it.
Ruth, do you want to comment on it? We've talked about the multifaceted nature of a family within Inverclyde here. We've talked about many times today, and we know the issues we've got deep ingrained in Inverclyde, and we know that there's multi-generational issues of it get sending people to school. We could see from Michael that he's anti-staff are really trying to get through that you need to get young people to school in order to educate them. But sorry, I'm parting one roof. It's what we know that.
I would just concur with Michael. I think he's given the full explanation of everything we are doing with going to school, and I think I can see lots around the room saying, yes, that's everything we do. Of course, we can do more, and that's what comes out from the improvement system. What I would say is Inverclyde has historically had low attendance, and attendance can be linked to poverty as well. If you look at our stats, either side of school holidays, because of cost of holidays, families looking at the cost of living will tend to optimise that, and that is linked to people having less money. So we can see a direct link between attendance and poverty, and we would expect to be below the national average on that. What I would say is that when you look at the trends, and please do go on the LGBF and have a look at the trends, you'll see that this is a national issue. COVID has changed habits, and as Michael said, this is something that schools can't do alone. It's got to be in partnership with the wider services supporting the whole family, not just the child.
Thank you. David, is that okay? Lynn, would you like?
Yeah, Yeah, I just want to see an improvement. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Lynn, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks. Great to see the strategy and everything that's coming together. It's probably you can't just put everything in there because we do know of other things that are happening and so ways that our teaching staff are putting in place. You know, and that's happening every day and coming up and being very creative, which is really good to see. And it's great to see there's more of that carrot approach rather than the stick approach. I think in days gone by it was very much a stick approach. You have to go to school and we're going to force you there, but actually the carrot approach and encouraging, because that ensures that their young people continue to come back because they feel supported. And I think we have to recognise, I think you said with COVID, we're in a completely different place in a new world. We spent so much time telling our young people school's not safe, you know, and there's dangers there, and then they're socially isolated, and then you're talking about going into a very sociable place. We've got young people who missed their transitions through COVID, so a lot of their growing up they've done in the house rather than that sort of group setting. So there's so many reasons why we're there. As you say, it's a national and global problem. So it's just good to see that. I suppose that gives us a sense of a committee that, you know, everything possible that's getting done is getting done, and more of all the other things that are going on that we can't quite put into this report. So I think it's just, it's well, probably, maybe it's just because I'm around young people quite a lot. I do see all the new and creative ways of trying to get our young people engaged, and that's not just support about attendance, that's support from their life in general, you know, leadership programmes and trying to be good citizens so that they're equipped for the adult world. So it's just, thanks for the report, and we know it will be a work in progress, and we look forward to hopefully seeing that going up in a slow, steady way, because I don't think we can be too ambitious with the size of the issue that we have. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks to anybody else online. Thanks to anybody in the room. So I thank Michael very much for the paper and the report. When you move to agenda to number 15, which is just the pre-consultation, the review of professional early years at New York. But Michael's going to take it on. Michael.
Yes, it's, so this is a report that asks members of the committee to engage a consultation process in relation to your national school. As you know, across the majority there are different models where we've established, but the majority of them are either standalone early years centres or nursery classes as part of primary schools, and your nursery schools now will remain standalone nursery schools. And so this paper requests permission to undertake a pre-consultation process to change that model, and the pre-consultation process outcome would inform the statutory consultation process. The opportunity to carry out this has been linked to the fact that the current head teacher is retiring in April. And you may recall we did a similar thing previously with Glenmore Nursery School, which at that point was the second last of our nursery schools. So the thing that requests that officers undertake consultation and pre-consultation during November with the New York community in order to inform potential next steps for statutory consultation, which we then report to the next meeting of the Education Committee's committee. Absolutely questions.
Thank you, Michael. All the other questions are Robert and then Robert.
I mean, I have no problems with consultation, but I'll bring it up to New York Primary tomorrow night, and they call themselves an action committee. And we get it in the neck all the time because it's side of this school. They're always saying that they need a deputy head because it's far too much for a head teacher. Now that's not my problem, it's an operational problem. If this consultation was to go ahead and the head teacher in New York was to put in the nursery, would that not give her even more work than she has at the moment? So is this a plan to, is it a saving plan, or are we going to employ someone else in the New York Primary, because it is a massive school and there's always that, every time we'll be there tomorrow night and we always get it. So I don't know, consultation will go, can't stop it, but I don't think they'll be jump through hoops for Glasgow when they see this report.
So you can, so we have an LNCT agreement around management structures within all of our schools, our primary schools and our secondary schools, and that's applied accordingly. And that LNCT agreement affords Newark currently one deputy head. The school has over time taken the decision to use the funding devolved to it through Pupil Equity Fund to enhance its leadership team. So they currently have 2 deputy heads. And in this proposal, one of the options is for the school to become a nursery class as part of the primary school. And as stated already in the report, that is a model that exists across Inver Clyde. There are a number of schools, not maybe as large as Newark, but large still. For example, Aileen is a large school and it has a nursery class and has had for a long time. And if that were to be the preferred option taken forward, then the school would have a deputy, an additional deputy head of centre, or the head of the nursery class. The nursery class would have a management structure where the staff that are there would remain, obviously, and a deputy would be put in post to have overall running, managing responsibility, leadership responsibility of the nursery class, if that were the option that to be taken.
That's fine, Michael, as long as it's explained to the parents what is that we've got in place, what we're planning to do.
So through the convener, the consultation will include all stakeholders in Newark Nursery School. It will also include Newark Primary School, because obviously that's one of the proposals that we would take forward in consultation, and there will be 2 public events that we would attend and present proposals.
Thanks.
There's a point to say we're not preempted the consultation. That's the first thing to do, so we never preempt anything, so we'll not preempt it. To connect it all.
Should be a comment, Mr.
Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. Just got a kind of technical question. What's the difference between a standalone nursery school and a standalone early learning centre? I know I should know the answer to this because we've talked about it, we've passed it. It was when I was reading it again, I'm thinking, right, what's the difference between those two?
So, in many ways, when you go to them, what you see is young children engaging in quality learning experiences. Just one as a status of a school, and the early learning centres are not schools. And the difference therefore is that the school has a head teacher in post, and the heads of the early years establishments are not teachers. So that would be the key difference.
Okay, thanks.
David, can I bring you in?
Yeah, I've really got to here again. I'm absolutely amazed that option number 2 is in here, given the size of Newark Primary. We got it wrong in the first place. We combined 4 primaries into 1 to give us Newark. It's far too big. I fought for 15 years to get a deputy head. I got nowhere because of the standard formula that was used. The standard formula really should not apply to a school with near on 500 pupils. I think that we saw this school here, we saw head after head dropping out under pressure because of the sheer size and the sheer workload that was involved. To give further workload to the current head, who, by the way, is doing an excellent job, Mrs. O'Hagan. She's doing extremely well. Got a very good report there, but I don't think you can give her any more responsibilities. I certainly would favour option number 1 with a head there looking after the nursery school. Thank you, convener.
Thanks, David. As my earlier comments probably say, I don't want to I think when we're trying to preempt things, then people say, well, these have made up their mind anyway. So what we do is don't preempt and we put it into consultation and we see what comes back. And if that's the feeling of, you know, the community, then we take that and work when we get into the people's back. Have we got anything else? Can't see anything else in line. Can we agree about consultation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, consultation of safety. Can we go to agenda item number 16, which is an update on the West partnership? And I think I'll go into this.
Yes, so this is an update on the West Partnership of Regional Improvement Collaborative, and for those of you who remember the inception of this, there was some nervousness around the regionality of the oversight of education, and money was put to establish the RICS, and the West Partnership was established and took time to develop, but has gone yearly from strength to strength, and we've always brought the action plans and the reporting plans to this committee. This is the latest of the progress reports of the RIC and also the improvement plan for next year. But that improvement plan from 24-25 will be the last year that the RIC is funded. So the directors of the West Partnership have met together. We think there is merit in keeping the West Partnership going. There is added value, certainly bring the client working partnership with large authorities to get some of their training, and certainly the benefits we've had from somebody coordinating from the CPD and looking at the data together has been huge, and I think that's felt across the West. The West is one of the strongest performing collaboratives in Scotland. So the directors have opted to say we will keep going beyond when the Scottish Government is funding it, and we will use people equity, Scottish equity funding, sorry, not PEP, Scottish equity funding to pay for that resource whilst the second in place. So what we're essentially doing is saying that there is some value in keeping the work together, that our teachers have access to a lot of good quality learning, a lot of good quality CPD, a lot of good quality evaluative research, and we would like to put some money towards the resource for the Scottish equity funding to keep that going beyond the term of us being able to bring the Scottish Government. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Convener. Obviously, we've got a decision to make about whether we stay in the West Partnership, but it's clear the West Partnership wants to remain. I might have a supplementary after this one, depending on what you answer. What's the story with the other partnerships? Are they all folding? Are they all happy to fold?
Some of them will keep going. Some of them will fold. Some of them will keep going just in a lesser, without such a structure. I think the West is probably the one that is the most committed to keeping going, certainly through the work we've been doing. So it varies across the country, but I think we've worked well, we've worked hard, we've established big relationships, and we want to keep that going. I have to say, it's a shame the funding is stopping. I didn't think I'd say that, but I think that it's a real shame that the funding is stopping for that, which it was nothing to do.
So that is my supplementary question. If West is the only one that's genuinely saying we are gung-ho doing this, has it already been done, but is there a case for West going back to the Scottish Government and saying we're not asking you to keep going with the funding for RICS, but we're asking you to put a wee bit of money aside for us, because we are genuinely 100% going to do this?
I think the money's been allocated. I think the money's been allocated to the Centre of Teaching Excellence. So I think it's there's just another project that's taken priority. We can always ask and we'll go back, but we will have to look at how the development of that particular project goes.
Okay. Thanks. And just quick, if that question hasn't ever explicitly been asked, I think it would be worth a shout.
See for myself, I was probably one of the ones that spotted the big step in the West first came up on board, because it was a application of the Scottish Government. But when I think the coordination working, me it seems that we're getting a big plan to adopt this rather than whatever it's costing. So I'm content that if Ruth and Michael did think it was value for money for the council, they would come here and they would tell us that. So that's, as you can expect, that's the first question asked, is this value for money for the and we say it's good value for money for the so that's why I was happy to hold on with it, happy to repeat it. Any other questions? In that case, can we read the paper then? Thank you. And thank you for the attendance today.